Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's BDF44. So, this ain't no basketball conversation. This is just me venting into a camera, you know? And sometimes life hits you with stuff, and you want to just kind of vent. So, I'll try to make this as constructive as possible, but you guys are just my shrink right now, so bear with me. So, my car got repoed again, twice in like 6 months. Just found out right now when I threw the trash out. I knew this was coming, of course. You know when you don't pay your bills. But it's important that I go on record to say, first of all, this is my fault. Everything that goes on in my life is my fault. I chose certain things, put myself in certain positions, and because of it, all that I have or do not have is or is not. But if you guys have been following me, I don't know if, I didn't make a lot of videos on this, but if you guys have been following me since January 27th, I've been adamant about being a part of this AMC and GME squeeze play. That is a stock that's been heavily shorted by companies who have made it their business to exploit their ability to do so in order to make gain for themselves and gain as much capital and power as possible in doing so. And they've rigged the stock market. We've proven it. We know that they've proven it. The fallout has now come about. You see them losing money. You see a lot of stuff happening in the financial world as a result of people like myself buying shares of this particular stock or these particular stocks and holding them for dear life, right? And what is supposed to happen is in doing so, the people who are shorting the play on the other side are going to eventually have to pay absorbent amounts of money to exit their position. So that's just the cut and dry of what I'm a part of. But the decision that I've made to not work, I quit a job that I needed to quit. If you guys were following me during that process, I was going through a lot during that time. And I walked away from that job in a moment of just complete spontaneity. Like I was just like, you know, I'm out of here, bro. Like something happened for me, it was too much and I was out. But it was a collection of things. Ultimately, I was just unhappy and I needed to walk away from that situation for my own mental health. That's why I speak on the things that I do in the way that I do, because I've had these experiences, even in some cases in the past, but in some cases more recently. But I didn't go back to work. You know, I did not go back to work. I stayed home. I got very, very happy with the lifestyle of just doing my own thing. I have this channel. I got my playlist curation project. I got my mindset, which allows me to stay alone for long periods of time. I grew up this way. I guess childhood trauma, I don't know. I don't really know why I'm this way, but I've secluded myself quite a bit for long, long periods of time. It's not right. I know that. But that's what I've chosen. And because I've chosen that, anxiety, it gets to be a thing to where even taking the trash out, you feel anxiety. Even going to the grocery store, you got to prep yourself. Jumping in your own car, you feel like when you're in the presence of others, you have to... I don't really know how to describe this. I don't know how to describe this, but this is anxiety. It's probably irrational fear based on defensive mechanisms that I've placed up to protect me from childhood traumas. That's what I believe it is. And I've had a very, very, very difficult time dealing with this growing up. It kept me from going to school irrationally, kept me away from going to school for years. When I say years, I mean years. One of the reasons why I speak the way that I do about basketball is because while all of my peers were in school, I was at home alone, studying NBA stuff, watching basketball, and absorbing as much of that as I could, because that's what I could throw myself into, along with video games and marijuana, that would allow me to stay away from all that ails me and in my anxieties. So I've had deep, deep, deep concerns and issues with this for as long as I've been conscious. And it's reared its ugly head as I've grown up because I didn't do enough to fix it when I was younger. I didn't take therapy. I didn't, you know, challenge myself. My mother wasn't able to discipline me in a way that pulled me away from that defensive mechanism coddling that I had going on. And I grew up to be a man who knew better than to not work, but couldn't break out of those habits and that anxiety. So this is where I am. This is why you always see me walking around this apartment. You see stuff being the same way. You see You know, if you've seen my house, the apartment looks the same way as it did 5 years ago, because I don't do things to improve my situation because I'm too busy sitting in my anxiety. Now, it doesn't mean that my anxiety is something that rears its ugly head as it pertains to me turning on this camera for whatever reason. I don't know why that is. I would probably say that's because I was raised by a mother who believed herself to be an entertainer and a star. She found comfort in the limelight. Maybe I just inherited that naturally. My personality is that of someone who doesn't feel comfortable around a lot of people for a long period of time. Now, my personality leans to it being that I am comfortable. So it's very confusing for a lot of people to deal with me, but the reality is I'm just a person who deals with a lot of anxiety all the time. I'm feeling it right now. So this has kept me from making sound decisions to stay in situations of employment that maybe didn't feel comfortable to me, which is why I speak on Ben Simmons' situation the way that I do. It's because I've been there when I was in school, how I perceived being teased and how I perceived my interactions and being judged by my peers and by others made it so that I wanted to retreat. Different betrayals, different things that I saw in people, whatever, just put me in a space to feel like I'm best alone. Maybe that's not right for me. Clearly, as things continue to happen, because I'm this way. Let me tell you all that's happened to me in my life. Because I've been trying to stay alone, away from others. I've been kicked out of apartments. I've had my car, of course, repoed, as I've told you twice now in the last couple months. I found myself in situations where I didn't get an education, even though I'm fairly intelligent. Most school I went through was maybe a 1 year, like community college. Like I didn't do school because of my anxiety issues. And now I'm telling you, at 37 years of age, I got all of this understanding. What you need to do. You must work. You must stack your money. You must interact with certain people. Play the game as it pertains to putting your best foot forward and being a professional. All of these different things. But when I get in those situations, my natural inclination is first to protect myself from trauma. So when I get to these places, I go seclude myself. If you notice some of my videos, I only dipped out to deal with Santa Monica places it pertains to the work when they called me. Or when it was something systematic that I did every day, which comes naturally to me, routine-based stuff. Other than that, I didn't just bump elbows with people and be all in people's face talking and stuff. That doesn't come naturally to me. That's like pulling teeth for me. I'm the awkward dude in the corner that's not doing the stuff that y'all doing a lot of times, unless I'm surrounded by people I'm comfortable with, as to which I can put on a mask, right? It's a mask, and make it seem as if I'm comfortable in these settings when I'm not comfortable there either. It's just anxiety, man. It's constant, right? Not to make excuses for myself, because what I should do and what I needed to do was address it, not coddle it, not spend so much time being comfortable in that space. And allowing things to fall by the wayside in the process of that. You know, getting evicted from my apartment left me in a situation where I needed to be in my mother's place for that time being. At that same time, we were going through a lot with her health. My mother didn't own the place she was in, but my grandmother owned that condo. She wanted to do things with the condo, and I was coming into it. When my mother was going to be leaving, you know, she was losing her life to cancer. So we knew she was leaving. They were ready to move on from the condo, right? So when I got there and I needed a place to stay with these bad habits that I had, they didn't want me sitting there for no 5 years like I was going to do if they let me. They needed me to get up out of there, and that was hard, tough love that I wasn't ready to embrace. But ultimately, that too was a situation I had to leave. As a result of my behavior and my actions and the way I operate. Your mental health is important. And I'm not saying that because I think other people are like me. I don't know your mindset, but whatever you're going through, whatever it is that you challenges you deal with, whether they are as mine are, worse or better, addressing it, especially in the midst of grief and loss, like people passing away, stuff like that, addressing it is how you keep from finding yourself with whatever the consequences are for your situation. Mine is getting your car repossessed and having to sell shares you don't want to sell. Knowing that you should be working in order to keep your shares, but convincing yourself not to work so that you can stay within the confines of your irrational behavior. Now, some would tell me or ask me, how is it that you're able to see yourself doing this but not stop yourself from doing this? That is the equation of my existence. I have no idea. I feel like it's a gift and a curse because I love being self-aware, but if I can't control myself, or rather override my concerns to do what's necessary, then I'm failing at life and I'm watching myself do it. So for the longest time, I would fall into depression, natural depression, because I couldn't figure out that equation. Years of people telling me I was lazy. My mother telling me, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just take your resume, walk down the street, get you a job? You know, or people telling me, you know, all you really have to do is this, 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 and this, and bam, your situation's great. And I'm telling you, I know that. But bringing myself to initiate myself to do those things, for whatever reason, is a very, very, very impossible thing. It's like it's something that I'm having a hard time overcoming. And that's the best way you know how to describe mental hurdles. And that's why I understand mental illness as it pertains to people doing irrational things and not being able to explain to others what it is that they're thinking and why. I'm fortunate enough to be able to explain it, but I understand it. I get it. Some stuff is just not about reality. It's about your perception of trying to mold your reality to whatever it is you can cope with. And I'm a product of that. I spend more time trying to cope with my reality than I do actually handling my reality. And as a result, my reality is crumbling. And I still end up facing the same stresses that I'm ultimately trying to run from. You look at these right here. See these marks on my face and all this different stuff? That's a result of stress. Stress. Different marks on my head. My health is gone bad in this space, trying to maintain a comfort that isn't real. And on a day like today, I got to face all that I fear anyway. Do you know a $200 payment last month would have kept this from being what it is? Now I got to spend $1,400 just to fix it. And I knew it. See, what's really harmful about being the way that I am is that I know it. I'm one of those people who would go outside to my car, and before I go to my car, I'll press the button to hear if my car is there. Because I've already been traumatized by the first incident of getting my car repoed. So I knew my car wasn't there before I got out there. I wasn't going to be tricked into thinking the car was there and then, nah, it's not there. Because I know when I press that button and it ain't there, it's been repoed. So I knew. I kept pressing, didn't hear it, I knew. Last time they caught me off guard. Do you see the perception, anxiety that I manifested just from going through that one experience? Now, mind you, it wasn't a real trauma because I had the money. Still do. I got it. I can pay that right now. I have my car back a couple days. But the anxiety, the issues that I perceive, not the real ones, but the ones I'm trying to coddle myself from that I think are coming, are what harms my mentality and keeps me in the space that I've been in up until this very point. Now, I don't claim wanting to stay in this space. No, sir. I'm hopeful that I can get out of this. I'm hopeful that I can help myself. You know what I mean? I'm not quitting either. That doesn't mean I'm better than someone who chooses to quit, because I don't know your world. I don't know what you're going through, and I support you. But what I'm saying is I don't choose to quit. I don't want to quit. I don't want to give up. I don't want any of that. Maybe that comes from a certain level of confidence that I have an ability to do this or that, or arrogance about myself that I can be of support to someone else when I figure it all out. I don't know. But I'm not quitting. But I'm telling you, I did this to myself. I would love to stop, and I've had a large portion of my life being taken up by that equation, or rather that scenario, that understanding that I want to stop myself from doing things and I can't. But let me tell you something. Let me share this too. When I quit that job, this last job, and I went into this house and retreated and quit the job, was going through what I was going through, one of the things that I did was pray a great deal, you know, and I'm a praying person, so that's my thing. But I prayed a great deal, and what came to me in that situation was, you're not going to really understand why you're going through this particular season, this, whatever, how long this is going to go through, how longer this is going to be. You don't necessarily know why or how long this is going to be. That's what I'm trying to say. But you're going to have a different type of understanding when it ends, even though you've been through so many different things, and this is so many of the same happening again. you're going to gain a new understanding from it. And I can tell you I have. The difference between this particular space and what I was going through in my childhood and maybe some of the other depression stints that I've had was this one, I wasn't going in with the intention of allowing myself to beat myself up for these behaviors. That I was aware, and that I was still doing these things, as I said, made for a great deal of depression and beating myself up and belittling myself and telling myself things that just weren't true. That I didn't want good things, that I didn't see the fruit in working hard, that I was lazy, that I was somebody who didn't want to go after the money or what have you, or didn't want to help my family, that I didn't have what it took to do certain things to be successful, that the world wasn't meant for Brandon to be successful. All these different things that I would tell myself to keep myself stuck in space of comfort and, you know, perceptions being as I can deal with them, staying in that space of comfort. It ultimately was just a bunch of lies I was telling myself. A bunch of lies. The truth of the matter was, I was making a decision to put all of my money into a situation that could turn all of my money into a whole lot more money than I've ever seen in my life. And when I decided to make that decision, I made that decision under a lot of stress. My niece, that same week, the 27th, the 2 days before that occurrence, not even 2 days, it was 1 day. The day before that occurrence, I had gotten called that she had fallen ill and that it was looking very bad. And when I bought all them shares of AMC, that was on my heart. I was at a job that I had just gotten to a couple months before, didn't like the vibes of how things had gone over those 2 months. I think during that time I had started becoming unhappy with the job around that time. Just gotten a new phone, the same phone I'm holding right now, I had gotten that same week, maybe that day. All of this happening at once. And I bought these shares not knowing what was about to happen, just knowing that the squeeze itself was possible because we had seen it run up over the last couple of days. Hey, AMC is going crazy. Maybe it'll, you know, we saw what happened with GME. Maybe AMC can kind of piggyback back that or whatever. Let me jump in, just like any other situation where you want to risk jumping in something you think may be a pump and dump. Yeah, it's going up. Let me get in there and see what's up. That was all I was doing. And when I started understanding what I was involved in, I became passionate about it. So what happened? I started throwing all of my money into it. I found out a little way for myself to be able to front myself the money necessary to buy as many affordable shares as I possibly could. I found a way to do all kinds of different, I was doing stuff, putting myself in a position to not only take the paycheck money, but to also take other money and put it there. Stimulus money, put it there, all of that, still got it. Didn't spend a dime, I didn't buy myself a shirt, I didn't buy myself no drawers. I didn't get my car registration. I didn't pay my car insurance. I let that lapse. I didn't pay rent for months. All of this shit so that I could hold these shares. Literally. Just so that I could be a part of this thing. Not only because of the wealth aspect of it, but because I understand holding the shares is ultimately what will bring forth the justice that we're asking for, that we demand. I haven't lost sight of why. It's that corruption that has led me, ultimately, that has trickled down to me here. It's true. Now, that doesn't absolve me from my decisions or my lack of getting help for myself. That's my own problem. I should have made sure I was working throughout this process and none of this would have happened. That's first. But I quit. I stayed at my job 3 and 4 months after I would have quit. I was unhappy for a long time there. Long for me, rather. In the mindset of me, I walk away from something stressful, and I hate it. I just described that to you for the last 10 minutes. So I stayed in that situation so that I could continue to accumulate money. Didn't pay a single bill in that time. So you see how all these things are happening. You see how I'm getting the car repossessed and stuff, because all the money, all, is going to AMC, and I'm not taking it out. Since I quit my job, I've had to paper hand some shares. As you know, of course, I had to get the car, back the first time. So I had to sell them then, and then in quitting my job, I've given myself approximately $100 a week, right? Buy my groceries, buy my weed. That's it. Everything else is going by the wayside. No bills getting paid. Nobody's getting nothing. All of it stays in account to expose myself to the squeeze. And this is where we're at. Now I got this bill again. It's my fault. Got to pay it. Should have took 200, right? Should have went back to work. It's a lot of things that I know I should have done. But at the end of the day, truth of the matter is, this should have already squeezed. I should not be in any financial situations. I should not be needing money at this time, not with what I own. It's the corruption that has ultimately led me to the stress that I feel. It's the corruption of those people who are at the top, those hedge funds, that have ultimately put me in a space that is so very stressful that I snapped, essentially. That I went through somewhat of a mental breakdown. It's already a fragile mind to begin with, as I've described. I'm honest about myself because I know the good in me as well as the bad. So when I come to you and I say this is the weakness, what you don't see is the weird, wild confidence that I have in the things that I know I'm good at. So it balances out. You see what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's like when it's time to deal with these weaknesses, there ain't no way to shake it. You can point at who did what, and then you have to point at yourself. Say, I should have gotten help for myself. I should have sold the shares necessary to ensure that this didn't happen. I should have made certain things happen and communicate with certain people so that they could know what's going on with me, etc. I've withheld all of that. Let me tell you something else about me that also is really difficult in regards to myself. It's one of the reasons why I'm not as thorough on here as I'd like to be. I didn't grow up doing homework. I didn't grow up studying. I didn't grow up doing research. Didn't. It wasn't my thing. We didn't have Google back then, so I was the guy not getting the information because I just wasn't doing it. And as I grew up, certain things that come naturally, like, okay, if I want to look up something that I like on my phone, I can do that. But when it's time to crunch numbers in regards to my financial situation, let me tell you something, like honestly, like for example, applying for unemployment, applying for jobs, looking for car insurance, siphoning through bills and letters, extreme anxiety. That's the problem. That's honestly the biggest issue I have beyond all that other stuff. It's when it's time to sit down and face these issues, I start getting headaches. I start getting antsy. I start feeling depressed, hopeless, even when the money's there. That's the sad part about me. I went through that in 2018. My mother had left me her 401k. I had enough. I worked for 3 years having that 401k, got into a car accident, stopped working for 2 years and let all that money go away. Didn't even leave this house, just like I'm doing now. Why? Because I did that as a kid too, a couple times. So it's just continued behavior that I've never had control over, or rather, never had a hold of. It's a better way to describe the truth. It's hard getting on a camera and telling people you're out of control in some ways, because you want them to understand that you are under control in the ways that they need you to be under control so that you can function in society. But what I'm telling you is, I struggle, period. I struggle. Some people in this world don't function like the rest of us, and it does, or the rest of y'all, and it doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation. It doesn't mean that we can't see the forest for the trees. It's just when it's time to start moving, whatever it is in your brain that tells you to move, ours, it tells us to sit down and chill, because whatever we're going to run into is going to be horrible, horrific, and we can't take it. And that singular thought will allow us to sit in a space that will make all of those fears actually come to us. Personalizing, come to me is how I am. And I've been fighting with myself in this regard since I opened my eyes. I felt deep anxiety as a baby. Before anything traumatic even happened, anytime my mother would move away from me, I'm hollering. Dependency issues on her and all that. So you can understand, man, the help that I need, I would love to be able to share. And that's the beauty of the journey. It's because I know that I'm talking into this camera and somebody somewhere is going to hear this and be like, man, that's me, bro. Or, wow, that's my cousin. Or, yo, that'll explain his behavior. That's what I'm hopeful for here. Lord didn't give me the issues that I have so that I can just fall apart and die. He gave them to me so that I can use them in some way that I maybe haven't figured out yet. This is the way I know how to do it, and share it with y'all. So, anybody that's going through anything, I want to let y'all know. You can overcome it, even if I don't. Even if I don't, because you've seen someone who has. If another person has, then that means I can. That means you can. And if somebody else doesn't, but someone else has, that means they can. Maybe someone else won't. But doesn't mean you should try to quit if you have the desire to succeed and live comfortably and healthy in this world. You have a path to wellness. I'm looking for mine. I'm pretty sure I'll find it one way or another, because I'm not quitting. But what I'm telling y'all is to not quit too, because I know a lot of people will hear what I'm saying. They'll be like, well, man, he's down. Like, he's down. How is he going to make it? I don't know how I made it through the last ones either. I've already been through this. I put myself through this more than once. Got through it. It was worse than this. I don't know what's going to happen next. If it's worse than that, I'll get through that too, because I've been through this. All these experiences have really done for me is giving me stuff to share with you here. That's all it's ever really done. But I think something good can come of that, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to get my car back. I got the money to do it. I'm thankful for that. Not everybody does. Somebody in my situation will not have that money. I was fortunate enough to have a play back in January and have that desire in that time to work that job, to have that desire and to have that dream that I could find myself in this position to be not only rich, but be on the right side of history in regards to it. Something that would allow me to get away from all of my anxiety, in theory, because who knows, but something that would allow me to not have to be a security guard no more, pretend like I'm sane, walking around people who aren't sane, right? Because that's what it is. Keep it a buck. That's what it was. Literally walking around that place like I was sane. I knew I wasn't. I knew I was sick. I've always known I was sick. But in the presence of others, I have to be sound, especially as a security guard. I have to not be manic. I have to not be anxious. I have to be of sound-minded body. And my mental state there was helpful. So helpful. Because it allowed me to relate to them in ways that other guards couldn't. It allowed me to reach them in ways that other guards couldn't. And it allowed me to reach someone else through here that maybe someone else can't. I can speak on mental health things from a different angle because I suffer them greatly. So, with that being said, if you believe in God, pray for me. If you don't believe in God, know that I'm praying for you. And understand this. Nobody's here forever. Everybody has a journey. My goal is to overcome what I'm going through, what I've been through, kind of sort through it, and ultimately put myself in a position to resume my life. This corruption that I've found myself dealing with is because I walked into a battle. See, that's what I want you to understand. I'm not a victim with AMC. I walked into a battle. I knew what I was getting into. I may not have knew when I was getting into it at the time, but when I started pouring all my money into it, I knew this was a scenario. I was just hopeful it wouldn't play out this way. I think I'm in the right play because I've already been shown that, right? The money's already tripled, so I'm in the right play. This is a success, but I didn't want to sell this much of my position, especially at this time when it's not doing as well as it should be. So, I don't know if that's constructive for you, but that's just my sadness. It is what it is. Communicate with your people, y'all. Communicate with your people. That's one of my strongest weaknesses. I have a very difficult time communicating with the people I love about especially things like this. I should have called my grandfather, called people that can help me and stop this problem from happening, but my anxiety keeps me from communicating with them as well. It's irrational. It has nothing to do with their behavior. It has to do with me seeing myself make mistakes in their faces and the anxiety that comes from beating myself up about that. Self-consciousness, demons, that kind of thing, you know. So if any of my family see this, that's what it was. I always loved y'all enough to be in your lives. I just didn't know how to do that, right? I just didn't know how to. I'm speaking as if I was, but I'm still here, obviously. I'm not quitting. But just like in general, you know. I knew how to love, but but I didn't know how to be present like that. I'm the type of person where we could be having a real good conversation and my mind will start going to some insecure places for no reason. And I won't show that to you. I'm not going to bring that to you, but then I'll walk away from you and I'll keep those insecurities with me for no reason. Harbor on them and they will barrel down on my shoulders and stay there. I'm one of those. I laugh, but it's not funny, man. It's hard, bro. It's hard. And I'm just very happy that the Lord allowed me to get to a space, and my meditation and my prayers allowed me to get to a space where I'm no longer kicking myself over this. I don't look at myself as someone who did something wrong. I look at myself who did something incorrect, and that was not getting help soon enough. You know, but I was never that lazy person. I want to reiterate to all of you guys, my intention was to never be as unsuccessful as a person as I found myself being today. That was never my intention. I always thought I would be a pretty okay person in terms of doing well at this age. I thought I would be at least have some things together, you know. But this anxiety just controlled my life, y'all. And I call it anxiety, but I'm not really sure actually what it is. I don't know that this is labeled anxiety because I was actually never diagnosed with anything. But whatever this is, it has controlled me, and it's kicking my butt. So that's what I got, man. Yeah, man. Thank y'all for listening to this. I don't expect y'all to sit through all of this. I probably wouldn't sit through all of this, but I do want people to take from this very thing. Your mental health is important. You matter. Don't jump into battles that you're not ready to see all the way through, and don't jump into battles that you don't have all of your tools to help you properly fight in. That was another mistake I made before I go. I jumped in all in knowing that I couldn't sustain all in for as long as it would necessarily take. And that was a bad decision. Not a mental health decision, just a bad calculation. I thought because the stock was going up in a certain way that I could quit my job when I did. And as soon as I did that, almost on cue, the stock started to tumble. And that's why I'm in the situation I'm in, with significantly less money than I had when I quit the job, because I thought we were headed to the moon and we were really headed toward more of the same. So that was just a miscalculation on my part. Ain't got nothing to do with no anxiety. So now, how do I convince myself to go back to work? Because clearly, if going back to work was something I saw as a solution, this would never have happened. The reality is, saying the words going back to work brings about a certain level of anxiety in my stomach. Sad, right? But that's the same thing I went through when I was in school. And it's not because the situation was that bad. It's because the avalanche of my brain perceives it to be so horrible, when it really isn't. I mean, it sucks in some ways, but I've had some great times at work. And I can tell you guys that with ease. I had some great times at school back then. And I was able to tell my mother that. Like, look, I don't hate school. It's just when I wake up in the morning, the anxiety that I have makes me be preventative of the experience of school. It's like, I'm not going to put myself through that. Through what? Whatever. I see it. It's bad. I'm staying here. That's how it works. And the same thing is happening now with work. And I'm having a just as difficult time overriding that stupidity. I call it stupidity, but that, as I did back then when I was a kid with school. Same shit. Same thing, y'all. So I said all that to say, you will deal with the same problems you have. If you're a young person and you're dealing with certain issues, address them. Go through the difficulty of clawing through all of that you need to claw through to get right. Because if you don't, what is likely to happen is that you'll do what I'm doing and go through some of those same battles as an adult. And that is preventative. You can keep yourself from going that route. Things don't get better, they get worse. When you're talking about mental health and deficiencies and stress levels and stuff like that, you have to get help. And I'm talking to myself when I say that. So, yeah, that's what I got, y'all. I thank y'all for bearing with BDF44. That's who I am. I normally talk about basketball. I'm gonna still do that. That's not over with. But I do have to make some real personal changes in my life, and as you can see, by myself. So make sure that you're not, man. If you have a support system of people that you love, and you can muster enough courage to be in their lives consistently, don't allow your fears for betrayal or your fears of letting them down keep you from being in their lives. Don't let your fear of death because that was one for me as well. It kept me from a lot of people. Don't let that keep you from people. Don't let your fear of them not being in your life keep them out of your life. They're here now. You love them now. That's one of the triggers for my mental health is that battle. It's like, I know that, but to then not call, and then beat myself for not calling. It's a vicious cycle of frustration. But the purpose of this video is to document it, and change it. Definitely change it. So, thank you guys for this. My name is BDF44. This ends my therapy session. Now I gotta figure out how to get my car back.